I've got the next sequence that we're going to look at queued up just here, set in the Lodge of Sorcerers in episode 2. And in this sequence, we're seeing Yennefer woken up by Tissaia, and there's lots of lightning and stuff happening. They're taken down to this sort of cave with a hole in the ceiling, and then they have to try and catch lightning in a bottle. Spoilers. I've got a behind-the-scenes shot which is going to tell us quite a lot about how they're achieving all of this. It's interesting then to look through at the different angles and see how they're achieving that look, knowing that this is the lighting that they had there. First shot sees Yennefer lying in bed after she's been patched up from trying to kill herself. It's all torchlight at this point, so we've got a very low level. I mean, looking at the RGB parade down here, there is hardly anything there. It is super low level. And I think that part of the reason for that is obviously it's just torchlight, but we're then going to contrast it with what happens in the next shot just here, where we get this burst of lightning. So you go from that very low, very warm tonality to this really stark, crisp light just blasting in and kind of bleaching out her features and everything just there. Knowing what I know about the rest of the shots that come later in this sequence, we can assume that they're using a big Arri sky panel, or even maybe a small Arri sky panel through a frame to achieve this. Although it's a very bright light, it isn't hugely hard. It's not like it's a Fresnel or anything hitting them. You can see where the cabinet is occluding everything just there. We've got a really well-defined shadow. But then if you look at Yennefer and you look at the pillow, the shadow's actually relatively soft around here. So it's not like it's a Fresnel hitting her just there and just blasting shadow across and that would all be completely taken out. I think it is a larger source doing this, and that would make sense. I mean, we know they're using Arri sky panels here, and that could well be an S360 placed outside of the set or even in the room. I mean, it depends how they were running this, but either way, that's how it looks. What is the name of the female mage? Head female mage. Female mage Witcher. What's your name? Tissaia? Tissaia. Don't know if I'm saying her name right. I can't remember how they said it in the series. I'm going to go with Tissaia. If it's wrong, it's wrong. Coming in just here, she's lit with torchlight from her right-hand side, and that's quite a nice shape on her face. She has a little bit of something down this side too, but not all that much. We've got background illumination here. I have to say it's slightly unmotivated at this point for me, because although that would make sense if this torch was lit, that something would be happening in the back there, there's no torch lit just there. The torch would kind of be over here for what we're seeing with her just there, but there is no motivation for that. There were some torches on Yennefer's nightstand, and then we've got this top light falling across Yennefer just here. So yeah, I reckon if they're doing this, they're lighting Yennefer independently with something coming in above her, just edging that. And the reason I think that is this entire area falls off to shadow around here. If they were lighting Yennefer with the same light that Tissaia's being lit with, then I think that you would find that this area would get illuminated far more. So I think they've got a controlled light for what is happening on Tissaia just there, and then something for the background, I guess just so she stands out a little bit, and that's looking pretty toppy, I think, because we've got shadows on the underneath of this sort of detailing that's going around the room, dado rail, whatever you want to call it, and I can't see any shadows falling back this way from these candlesticks either. So I'm feeling like what's on her isn't what's on the back wall either in that situation. So you're separating out all of the different things here. The background's being lit with its own source, and I think that's probably touching on her hair just there as well. And then Yennefer is being lit with her own source. So you have three distinct areas that you're dealing with. And on top of that, that contrasts with the lightning. When it comes in, it just blows everything out. And I guess by treating each of these areas separately and then having the lightning illuminate the whole room, you get to have quite a lot of control when your actress needs to move to a very particular area and not have too much light on her. But you also then get to blast everything out, keeping it at a low level and getting that impact. Interestingly, I feel like everything's a little bit brighter. If you've ever had to do a lighting gag like this, or car headlights, or a TV, or a fire, you know it can be quite difficult to get all of your levels sitting right and get the different lighting states feeling right so that you move seamlessly from one to the next, whether it feels like a car's going past, whether it feels like there's a lightning strike. Balancing that out, making sure the color temperature works for you, and then making sure that in between you have sufficient light in the right places is actually quite an art form. So props to them for setting up this and doing a decent job. After that, we're taken down into this sort of cave network where we've seen Yennefer before in this sort of room with all the skulls and stuff. We've got interesting mixtures of color temperature going on just here. So the whole room has a very orange feel to it, and you got those fires dotted around the place. And there. And looking at this scene, I would say that a lot of the light that's being cast around is coming from these fires, because they are quite large. But I wouldn't be surprised if they had like a sky panel behind each of those, just helping it out. So behind those columns. In the corner on this side, the background is quite illuminated, and you can see if you look at the shadows in there that there's a bit of directionality to it. So the light is tucked away somewhere behind everyone here, probably behind some props on that side, pointing slightly up like that. And you can see that plays out with the shadows. They just needed to fill that in. Now take a few steps back. Obviously we've got this shaft of light coming down here, which is super cool. Got to have some atmosphere in the room to do that, and then it's playing on the floor just there. Really enjoy that. Have to wonder about the logic here. It's meant to be in the middle of a thunderstorm, and that kind of means it's not a moonlit night, so I don't know what the actual motivation for that source is, but it's cool. Looks great. Love it. Draws the attention, so you've got this line playing down here. So you've got this line playing down here. It points you right towards her, so the whole frame just draws you in, takes you to where you need to be looking. Got those leading lines leading back to center of frame as well. There's a fair amount of light that's falling on the side of everyone along here and just edging her as well. But there's a reasonable amount of fill in this shot. I reckon that kind of closer to this side, so in between her and her, you would have a fairly large source up high just out of frame. And it's a little bit cooler. If you look at her skin there, it feels like it's not completely gone off to that moonlight vibe, but it's definitely a bit cooler than what we're seeing in the rest of the space and on the other side of her face. So a reasonably big soft source, no hard edges particularly around that, in between this actress and this actress up above, facing back this way somewhat, because we are catching on the floor a little bit around there and the back of her just there. But we're not catching so much on this actress just here, although she's getting a little bit. At this point, we flip to a reverse shot looking at them coming into the room towards us. And the lighting is all correct. So this is on the correct side. We have flipped and we've got a reverse of everything, but it all makes sense. We've got light falling on them like that, which is meant to be from one of those fires, probably another sky panel. And it's going on her. It's quite hard, so it must be a reasonable way back. And the rocks in the back just there are picking up that blue vibe. Trying to work out the direction of this actually. It does feel like it is pointing back that way because of those shadows, and those shadows are, yeah, there as well. So that is probably just around the corner of the cave, something reasonably low, that's probably about human height, pushing through and just making that background fall off to that kind of slaty, greeny blue all around there. And this is just rotated around, so where we were looking first instance back into the room towards the orange wall, And then in the second shot, we're looking back towards the slaty blue, which is still on the right of frame here. Everything is sitting correctly at the moment. We're now looking side on, and we've got Yennefer coming in and Tisaya just here. So she hasn't changed position. That still makes sense for her. We are lighting the side of her face. So it's flat on, but she has a great jawline, so that's no issue. And it falls off completely on her back. We've got these crazy shoulder pads she's got, but it all goes off to black along here. Really like areas like this where you have no fill light, so you've got a really dark silhouette happening all the way along her back just here. And that is then being carefully picked out with that slaty blue that we called out before. And you get that lovely contrasty line there. Just helps to define her and gives her that really stark silhouette. Think about how powerful a silhouette can be. If you just draw a really basic silhouette of Darth Vader, everyone can instantly recognize it. So crafting a good silhouette. And she's got this great costume. It's got those shoulder pads. It's got really high collared area around the neck just here. So it all fits in quite nicely. She's got really neat hair, no flyaways whatsoever. So it's a very crisp, well-defined silhouette, which I enjoy, like a good silhouette. Yennefer coming in from frame right just here. We called this out when we were looking at the Queen's Chamber scene. We noticed on the Mage you had that Rembrandt triangle going on, but again, you can see that on Yennefer just there, just catching her cheek. Looks really cool. And then the other side of her face, obviously, is getting the full light. So again, nice shape lighting on her, different tonality on the stone in the back just there. The costumes are giving them quite nice color contrast. So you've got the orangey, rich tones of their face, skin, going off to the green of the costume, and then you've got orange in the background, and you've got the greeny, slaty, bluey color in the background just here. So that all works quite nicely. If I had to call out what this was being lit with, I would just say they've put up a sky panel, stuck it over in the corner. The great thing I imagine for the DOP and the gaffers on this shoot is having those sky panels able to create firelight and just dial it in how you want it. It'll do it internally. You'll be able to ride the levels how you want, but you can also hook them up so that they're all working in unison, so you can get a really nice, alive feel to your lighting and not have to worry about levels. And you can keep the color temperature where you want it to be, so even if you bring it down, where traditionally, if you've been using tungsten fixtures to do this and dimmer boxes, as soon as you're bringing them down, you get really warm lighting. And conversely, when they're much brighter, the lighting gets cooler or gets up to tungsten temperature. And that can work for fires. I mean, it can work in your favor, but it also means that if you're trying to sit things in a certain range, you actually vary the color temperature depending on how bright you're making it, unless you have the luxury of bringing in more fixtures so that you can balance the color temperature. But it's far easier to do this all with a sky panel than it would be to do with multiple tungsten fixtures and some kind of dimmer box. So definitely reckon that they're leveraging that to the max just here to get all of these scenes lit efficiently. From here we move to a reverse shot of this angle. So it's interesting, you're getting reverse shot by reverse shot, but moving around sort of in a circle almost. Seeing Tisaya flat on, these two girls are getting that flat light. I'm not so keen on how the light is falling on them, just in terms of shape and having the lit side to camera, but from a narrative perspective, it's fine, it makes sense. We've got this in the background, which doesn't quite feel as nice as it did before. Things seem to have shifted a little bit, and now with that area, we're feeling a little bit more top lit on the back, actually. That's really interesting. I didn't notice that before. So everything looks like it's getting light coming down like this, where before it felt like it was coming from the passage horizontally. Definitely moving to a more vertical vibe for all of those shadows just there. I know I keep saying it, but just look at the shadows and you'll instantly see where the light source has got to be positioned In the next installment, we're going to look at how they lit the lightning in a bottle scene, so stay tuned for that, it's coming really soon.